Hello and welcome back to another episode on the channel by me, The Wise James. This is the Pope's Politics. Every Wednesday I cover the Prime Minister's Question Times and political issues of the week that gets spoken about. Let's get into it.
Will know that this weekend the Rugby League Ashes returns for the first time since 2003. I'd like to place on record my very best wishes to the England team, which will make the major rumble in London this weekend. It's the first of 3 matches against Australia. We now come to Ross Savage.
Question number 1.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Sunday, we unveiled Labour's plan to recruit hundreds of thousands of workers into clean energy, creating quality, well-paid jobs in every quarter of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, it's finally that's actually one of the parts of GB Energy they've got right. One of the points of GB Energy wasn't just national energy independence. It was supposed to be so we had like an extra 10,000 jobs to guarantee energy independence. So that is actually one thing Labour's doing right.
On Monday, we announced the new V-level qualification to make sure every young person has the skills to realise their potential. On Tuesday, our first ever regional investment summit in Birmingham secured £10 billion in investment, and today we're announcing tough new penalties to end the scandal of pollution in our rivers and seas. Mr. Speaker, that's national renewal with a Labour government. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I met Claire Throssell, who is here with us in the gallery today. Her 2 young sons, Paul and Jack, were murdered 11 years ago this week by her abusive ex-husband after a family court ordered he should have unsupervised contact with them. Claire's bravery and her campaign is humbling, and today I'm pleased we can announce that we will repeal the presumption of parental involvement, putting children's safety first.
I have been petitioning the government for well over a year. I wrote to every single MP, every single one of them, to try and get a minister installed to reduce violence against men and boys. Even though men are the ones who commit most violent crimes in the UK, we need to understand that this can be prevented. We don't need to keep producing these violent men. They don't need to grow up thinking violence is normal. They don't need to grow up being violent. We need a minister to stop violence amongst men and boys. We have a minister to reduce violence against girls and women because they suffer more sexual violent crimes than violent crimes, but men suffer 80% of violent crimes. So violence becomes normalised to men. Violence becomes almost just another tool in our arsenal to defend ourselves when words are not enough, right? We don't need to live this way. And we have no government minister to reduce violence in men. And that sort of minister could lead to things like this not happening. Where that man, violent man who killed his own children, because serious mental health problems, clearly. Why else would you kill your own kids? That could have been prevented. He could have been educated against violence from a very young age. But no, you in government think it's more important to make men out to be the violent guys and punish us rather than prevent it from ever happening in the first place. I wrote to every single one of these MPs about this. There's a minister to reduce violence against girls and women, but there's not a minister to reduce violence against men and boys, which is discrimination under the law, under the Equality Act 2010. Every single one of them in this room is complicit in sexual discrimination against men, which is considered a hate crime. By the way, you might not get charged now, but the future will see what you did. And they'll see that I pointed it out. And I pointed out how the entire government was breaking the law with sexual discrimination, and nobody did anything. They'll see this. And they'll see that you ignored the fact that you were committing a crime, which is sexual discrimination.
This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, Mr. Speaker, in addition to my duties in this House. I shall have further such meetings later today.
Dr. Ross Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to associate myself with the Prime Minister's sympathies extended towards Claire and commend.
I have massive sympathies towards the mother who's lost her 2 children, and massive disdain and disgust at the actions of the male. But these actions will keep happening. It will be another man and another 2 children. It'll be another woman and another 3 kids. All because the government refuses to accept you can't call it de-violence. To educate men and society against violence. We need a specific minister to reduce violence against men and boys. We have one for women and girls. We need it with men. You've got millions of men across the UK have been victims of violent crimes who they themselves are not violent men. And they have no voice in this room. No voice.
On her bravery. Mr. Speaker, I regret to inform the House that yesterday there was a very, very serious breach of national security when my PMQ was photographed heading into number 10 through a transparent folder. However, the nation can rest easy. On this occasion, no state secrets were revealed. However, it does...
Are we just going to brush off your security negligence as a joke then? I don't consider ministers, like, not being serious about national security as a joke. You are a joke for doing that. How dare you? You people in this room, you need to understand, your job is to serve us, the public, right? We say jump, you say how high, okay? It's as simple as that, right? You don't get to stand there and joke about the fact you didn't do your job properly.
Make me wonder whether this government can be trusted with a digital ID scheme that is mandatory in all but name.
Nobody can be trusted with a digital ID scheme. Every single human on the planet, I think, would misuse it. And those that wouldn't would never be in control of it.
Can the Prime Minister... I'd like to keep the Prime Minister on his toes. Will the Prime Minister reverse this misguided scheme, or will he persist with a plan?
He's going to persist. You know he's going to persist.
That makes all of our personal...
What the government want, I know you all think like it's about power and control, and it is. But what it's really about is data. They want you to have your digital ID on your phone and on your computer and everything. So every single action on the digital world can be tracked. Every comment, every post, every download, every upload. They want to be able to know everything you do. That's what it is. It's data. They want the data.
Data vulnerable to hacks and attacks.
Well, I thank you for our question. The whole point of digital ID, of course, is that you can't see it. So that should at least deal with the first of her concerns. Look, it is important that we make access to services, public services, as easy as possible for people. And we all know the difficulties that so many people have accessing services, and digital ID has been shown in other countries to help. I do think this is an important step forward. I also think it's very important as part of our plan to tackle those who are entering our country illegally.
I think Keir Starmer really underestimates the criminal world. You know what someone does when they can't get a British passport because they're not British? They get a fake passport. So it's actually probably going to be easier to make a fake digital ID than get a fake passport. And so this whole thing will be just a waste of money.
Jane Kirkham.
It will not stop illegal migration. At all. At all.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Households in Cornwall in temporary accommodation have increased by 265% in 5 years. So I'm delighted that this Labour government is investing 39 million into social and affordable housing. In Cornwall, we're developing a strategy to provide housing at sites like Pydar in my constituency, which need support from Homes England. Will the Prime Minister arrange for us to meet the Housing Minister at our Homes Cornwall launch next month to accelerate discussions on a strategic partnership for Cornwall so we can build the right
Cornwall.
homes in the right places for local people?
Well, I know the Housing Minister would be delighted to meet my honourable friend to help unlock new homes for her constituents. We are working closely with local authorities through our small sites aggregator to build new affordable homes on brownfield sites. My goal, Mr. Speaker, is to restore the dream of home and ownership, which was stolen by the government, by the opposition when they were in government.
Home ownership for my generation is a dream. Like, the only way you earn a home in the UK right now is if you work a soulless job for about 5-10 years, don't live your life, you know, you have to save it all, and then hope you get a good interest rate and deal on your mortgage. And then you're the bank's bitch for the next 25 years. You can't have a day off work because the bank will take your house. You can't afford to have cancer because the bank will take your house. The world these people have built is disgusting, where you have landlords who can just add more to the rent. And because there's a housing shortage, they can charge what they want. And guess who owned all the houses? All the Tory fucking donors.
Leader of the opposition, Kevin Bader.
I'm still waiting for her to mention how the US ambassador was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein and Starmer appointed him. Like, and then they took a break for 6 weeks, and now they've never talked about it since. Like, how's he said he didn't have any knowledge of information about Mandelson, and it turned out he wasn't telling the truth. So he said something knowingly not true in Parliament, which is lying. It's a breach of parliamentary procedure. I mean, I could be mistaken, but I'm fairly sure he said something wrong in the knowledge of it being wrong, because it was checked and he was proven to be lying.
Mr. Speaker,
But the media won't tell you that, of course, because the government control the media.
first of all, can I pay tribute to the former Conservative MP Oliver Colville, who has very sadly passed away after a long illness. Colleagues will remember him for his love of cricket and, of course, hedgehogs. He will be very much missed. Mr. Speaker, 4 victims on the Rape Gangs Survivors Panel have resigned. And they've resigned because they've lost all confidence in the government's inquiry. So I'm giving my first question to one of them, to Fiona. She said, being dismissed and contradicted by a minister when you're telling the truth takes you right back to that feeling of not being believed all over again.
I have this as well, personally. I mean, it's not as big as the rape scandals, don't get me wrong, but it is equivalent in human torture levels, okay? The things that go on under the Mental Health Act are disgusting, right? So I recently put in a complaint to the Quality Care Commissioner over things that went on under the Mental Health Act. And they tried to claim that I was not cooperative with medication, which is why they put me on a community treatment order. And it's not that I wasn't cooperative, it's that they tried to put me on a medication I didn't like and made me unwell, so then they forced it on me. But I was made out to be the one not doing what I was supposed to do. By the way, UK government, I only got better by coming off the shit you forced me on. And that's why I'm hammering you every day now, and I'll hammer you for the rest of my life, because the UK government allowed me to be tortured and called it legal, and it wasn't legal, because I was illegally held under the Mental Health Act. Right, here's something for you. You're supposed to have 2 separate mental health assessments to be legally held under the Mental Health Act. On my last mental health detainment by Dr. Willis and Dr. Aslan Pizzada, they did the same assessment at the same time in this very room. It wasn't 2 separate assessments, which was the only reason why I agreed to do it in the first place, was because it wasn't two separate assessments. I knew it wouldn't be legally enough grounds to section me, but they used it illegally to section me and called it legal. It was human experimentation, it was torture. Because of their actions and their criminal behaviour, I got forced into what's called a community treatment order, where I was forced an injection in my arse every 2 weeks for 2 years of Zuclopenfixil in massive high dosage. Literally caused massive problems. I was in a bed like this every day for about 2 years. I could stand up for maybe 5-10 minutes pacing and sweating, and then I'd have to lie back down. That was it. It was torture. Human torture. It didn't help me. Didn't medically help me. There was no medical justification for what they did to me. None. No medical justification. They just claimed there was. And they do the same thing now. They'll drill a hole in someone's forehead, right, while they're tied to a chair. They'll ram an electrode into their fucking skull, and they'll electrocute the fuck out of them and call it therapy. Electrotherapy. They still do it. I saw it done to someone. They had just appeared on the ward one day with a hole in their head. Oh yeah, that was fucking, that's a really good motivator for mental health patients. It's for one of their one of their fellow patients to turn up with a hole in their head from being tortured. Oh, that was fucking really good for our mental health, wasn't it? Like, I'm sorry, but the legal system in this country is fucked. Fucked. It's not fit for purpose. The police act like they're beyond the law, and the courts don't hold themselves account when they fail to implement or do the law. I myself, right, was once charged with common assault because I shouted at a woman who pushed me through a wardrobe, right? So I was violently assaulted, shouted at the woman for it. I didn't violently attack her, shouted at her for it, and I got charged for making her fear for her safety. I provided the evidence with a written confession by the person, admitting to what they'd done and why they did it. Also, got the police to come out and check the evidence was real and not fabricated it and handed it in to them. They haven't dealt with it. They haven't exonerated me, even though they have the evidence to exonerate me. So if I was some wrongly convicted man in a prison, they would have left me there to rot and die rather than admit their mistake. This is the country we live in, where the government will send out 2 dodgy doctors who will break the law to take you hostage, to basically rape you with a needle and claim it as medical treatment, even though it doesn't medically help you in any way, shape or form, and call it medical treatment. And then when you stop that, right, they'll say, oh, he needs to have this, we're going to have to section him and put him on another community treatment. You just don't understand the position they put you in, right? If I had ran away from the hospital, the police would have just come back and they would have just carried on doing what they did. I would have just lost my ability to see my daughter. There was no way out of it. I was raped every 2 weeks by the British government with a needle. Forced penetration against my will. I did not consent to it. I refused it. It was forced on me. But none of you care. None of you give a fuck. This happens every day to people, and none of you care. All these people in this room, all 650 of them, I wrote a letter to them about it. They don't care. They don't care about anything but themselves, which is why I think we need a democratically elected king who keeps the Prime Minister in check, and we need a neutral Prime Minister who has no affiliation with any political party. None. That's what we need. A Prime Minister who is neutral to keep the government in check, and a democratically elected king to keep the Prime Minister in check. We'll call it a trifecta of power. The government, the head of the government, the Prime Minister, and the one who keeps the head of the government in check, the king. All three should be subject to elections. All three. I don't give a fuck what you think traditionally, right? I don't care that kings claim to be God-born fucking authorities. They're not. They're no different to you and me. If I wanted you to be king, all I'd have to do is go and sit on that chair and wear the crown. Right? You got a lot of security to get through. A lot. But it doesn't have to be this way. we can democratically elect a new king and take the royal family out of the picture. Like, we don't need a royal family, but we do need someone to keep the Prime Minister in check. Because otherwise we'll end up with someone like Trump, who has nobody to keep him in check. And that's why I don't like King Charles. I don't like the royal family. But I like that they can remove the Prime Minister from power. They can take the Prime Minister's job from him like that, if they want to. If they want to. They have the influence and the power. They don't ever use it, but they have it. Which keeps the Prime Minister in check. So, I think we need to completely, excuse the pun, reform the British state to the point where we democratically elect a king every 5 years. And it means some of you lot would have a chance at being king or queen. I don't think you're going to disagree. That's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Fiona's question is simple.
So yeah, I can't stand all this shit. Like the police are shit, the government's shit, the courts are shit. Like, how the fuck did a magistrate look at my case and be like, well, this man was violently assaulted, shouted at the woman, and then we've got to charge him? No, the police didn't tell them that. The police left that out the case. The courts were not provided with all the essential evidence to the matter. And now the police have the evidence and they refuse to, they haven't done anything. They've sat on their asses hoping it'll just go away, and it won't go away. They're going to have to exonerate me, compensate me and my daughter, and give a public apology for what they've done to me to the whole nation live on TV. That's it. That's it. Either they do that, or I'm going to make the government pay every single person they've ever mistreated under the Mental Health Act since 1980. We're talking probably well over £10 billion of legal fees and compensation minimum. Minimum. I'll spend the rest of my life doing that. If they're not going to compensate me, I'm going to make them compensate everyone. And it's not blackmail. It's justice.
What's the point in speaking up if we're just going to be called liars?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for raising that on behalf of Fiona, and let me give Fiona and the House my answer, Mr. Speaker, because the grooming scandal was one of the worst scandals of our time. Women and girls were abused and exploited by predatory gangs of men, and survivors have been ignored for many years, including by the state that, of course, is supposed to protect them. My vow to Fiona and them is that this national inquiry will change that. I do acknowledge that in recent days some members, including Fiona, have decided to step away from the panel. I say this, Mr. Speaker, should they wish to return, the door will always be open. But even if they do not, we owe it to them and to Fiona and to the country to answer the concerns that they have raised. The inquiry is not and will never be watered down. Its scope will not change. It will examine the ethnicity and religion of the offenders, and we will find the right person to chair the inquiry.
Look, the thing is, right, you can't deny that there's a lot of people in certain religions and cultures who commit sexual crimes against young women. But, if you asked 20 years ago who was the most likely person to sexually abuse a child, they probably would have told you a Christian or Catholic. Like, all Catholics are Christian, but not all Christians are Catholic. So a Catholic priest would have probably been the number one listed thing. A Christian priest would have been listed. So it's not always been the case that Muslims are portrayed as sexual abusers of children. There has been the times where it's been Christians, Catholics, Buddhists. Actually, I doubt Buddhists, but Sikhs, Hindus. The Irish probably got made out to be rapists of children in the 90s and the 80s because of the IRA. So the British government would have made them out to be the pedos. Of course, that's what they would have done.
I can tell the House today, Mr. Speaker, that Dame Louise Casey will now support the work of the inquiry and it will get to the truth. Injustice will have no place to hide.
Yeah, you don't hide. There is no justice in the UK. That's why you haven't paid the post office scandal, people. That's why the grooming gang thing is getting covered up. When was the grooming gang crimes? Grooming gang crimes, UK. The grooming gang inquiry. Grooming gang inquiry. What does the grooming gang relate to? Give me the date. Give me the date. A case of 700. Ethnicity. I'm looking for the date. Give me the date. 2000. Doesn't say. Doesn't say. Rotherham grooming scandal date. 1997 to 2003. So literally, we are talking 13 years later after the last crime took place, and these cunts still haven't sorted it out. And you think that I have hope of being compensated for these lot letting me be raped with a needle by some dodgy doctors for 2 years and experimented on and tortured by your taxes, and it was called medical treatment when it never was. It was human experimentation and torture, right? You think I've got a hope in hell? Literally, there was 700 girls raped between 1997 and 2013, and people covered it up, right, because they didn't want to be seen as racist and against Muslims, whatever, right? And they're still dealing with it 12 years later. 12 years, 13 years later, and these fuckers still have not fixed it. And you all think there's hope for our justice? For our legal matters? It's beyond a joke. It's beyond a joke. 13 years to get people who helped rapists get away with rape held accountable. And they still haven't done it. This is the world that we live in. Where they're literally... We've spent 13 years trying to stop rapists being rapists and the people who helped them being held accountable, and we still haven't done it. So how is there hope for some mental health patient who's been tortured under the Mental Health Act when they can't even get justice for 700 rape victims? There's no chance of justice ever again.
Mr. Speaker, I doubt she'll be satisfied with that answer. He says that they could return to the panel if they wish to. Why would they do that? The government has been engaged in a briefing war against survivors. Elizabeth. Oh, really? They say shame? Why don't they listen to what Elizabeth had to say? Why don't they listen to what Elizabeth had to say? Elizabeth, who was abused in Rotherham from the age of 14, had this to say, and I quote, "The government has created a toxic environment for survivors." They were looking for answers from the Prime Minister, and what they've heard is Labour MPs saying shame at their words. Yesterday...
See, this is the problem with the governments, right? And reform will be the same. It's party first, right? And people second. So because some of those people who helped the grooming case scandal get away with their crimes were Labour councillors and Labour MPs and Labour crime commissioners, right? They don't want to own up to it. They don't want to deal with it because it's bad for them. So they're putting the party first before these victims of rape. And the Tory party, the party she represents, are no different. And Reform will be no different. They'll put the party first and the people second. We need a neutral PM. A neutral Prime Minister with no association to any political party and a democratically elected king that changes hands every 5 years. That's what we need. The king needs to keep the Prime Minister in check. The Prime Minister needs to keep the government in check. That's it. This system is not working anymore. It's not working anymore. They're putting themselves first and the people second every time. It's not working anymore, guys. I'm sorry. It's not working anymore. This needs changed.
Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the safeguarding minister said Elizabeth was wrong. Who should we believe? The Prime Minister's safeguarding minister or Elizabeth?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me put on record my respect for all of the survivors who've been through the most awful ordeals. And
You didn't give me the respect of me being raped by the government with a needle for 2 years with dangerous medications that could have killed me and didn't help me in any way, shape or form. Although it's not rape with a male genitals or with an object, it was forced penetration with a needle, right? Which is, I consider rape. You forcefully penetrated my body against my will. It's fucking rape, right? So go fuck yourself. You didn't respect me enough to reply to my letter, Starmer. So you're a liar. You're a liar. You don't care about rape victims. You don't care about people who have been abused and tortured. You pretend to care so that you can keep your job. Because if you did care about people who have been abused, why didn't you prosecute Jimmy Savile? Oh, because people advised you not to. But it's not your job to be advised when you were the head of the CPS. It was your job to prosecute criminals. So you did what you're told like a little bitch instead of what was right as a man. Huh? Yeah. Typical of this country. Like King Charles. Lip service and brown-nosing Trump instead of doing what's right. He should have kicked Andrew out the grounds. He should have stripped him of all titles and all royal funding. He should have stripped him completely and kicked him out of the fucking family. See you later, sayonara. You are exiled. He should have literally exiled him from the country. You know, do you think Henry VIII would have tolerated something like that? No, he would have beheaded him. He would have literally beheaded his brother for that. Okay? I don't agree with violence. I don't believe we should be committing crimes against Andrew just because he's committed crimes. But the king has known about all this stuff for a very long time. And he didn't act. He didn't act. So I don't see him as fit to be king. He's put the interests of his brother before what's right. Now, I can relate because I have a brother. And when he was facing a similar allegation, but wasn't involving children, nothing to do with children. Although we were children at the time, I guess. But he was a child, so it's different. I investigated the matter personally to ensure whether my brother was or was not guilty. And if he was guilty, I would have never spoke to him again. I would have disassociated with him, and that would have been it. I would have put what was right before my brother, because I don't know. Like, I don't care if someone's my brother, if they're a nonce or a rapist or something like that. I don't care. I don't want a brother like that. So why did King Charles not say anything? He sat on all this information and did nothing. He's literally able to hold the government accountable for not prosecuting rapists and for holding account those who helped them get away with it. He could literally end UK homelessness and child poverty for 10 years. If he wanted to. But no, he just goes about appearing at places and we're supposed to thank him for his presence. Oh, thank you, sire, for turning up at the synagogue of a terrorist attack. Your presence has made everything better. Oh, thank you, sire. Your mere presence has assured the Jews all over the world we are safe. Fuck's sake. Why don't you do some work? break a sweat. Something apparently Andrew can't do. Which we all know is a fucking lie.
To thank those that have been involved so far for the work in the process. What we're trying to do is to get this right and have an inquiry with survivors at the heart.
If you were trying to get it right, it would have been done by now. You're not trying to get it right. You're trying to mitigate, litigate, and deflect any accountability from the Labour Party whenever possible. Stop lying, Starmer. We're not thick. We're not stupid. You're lying. You're trying to protect your own party and people within it who help these people get away with it by analysing every bit of data that could potentially lead to you being held accountable. Stop fucking lying. Stop fucking lying.
As the Safeguarding Minister told the House yesterday, that's obviously not easy. They've all come with difficult experiences.
It is easy. There were 700 victims of rape. There is rapists who committed them rapes. And then there is people who worked for the police, for the CPS, for the courts, for the councils, for the childcare systems, and in the local communities who didn't do the right thing, and so helped them get away with it. It's very simple. That is negligence. It's called negligence in a public office. You yourself, Starmer, are guilty of it. You should look it up. You know the law well enough.
There are a wide range of views, understandably, and every survivor does bring their own painful experience to this. The survivors met the prospective chairs this week, and we want to have them to have the chance to engage. I want survivors to be at the heart of this. I want an inquiry that can get to the truth. These are the hard yards, I accept that, but I want to press on and get this right.
Mr. Speaker, he says that he wants survivors to be at the heart of this. But in his first PMQs this year, he said we did not need a national inquiry. And when he did, all of these MPs cheered. They were nodding their heads, including the Safeguarding Minister. They voted against the national inquiry 3 times. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They voted against the national inquiry. They voted against the national inquiry 3 times, so the victims don't believe them. They can say no as much as they like. It is on the record. They don't like...
I don't believe anything the Labour Party says. They didn't do GB Energy right. They haven't given 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote like they said they would. They didn't get rid of 0-hour contracts like they said they would. They said they improved workers' rights, but I'm yet to see evidence for that. They haven't lowered the national debt.
But it's true. Now, one of the victims has quit. Contrary to what the Prime Minister's just said and what the Home Secretary wrote this morning, they believe that the inquiry will downplay the racial and religious motivations behind their abuse. Aren't the victims right when they call it a cover-up?
Yes, they are. It's a cover-up. But the Tories are also complicit in that cover-up. You guys had 14 years to deal with that, and you didn't.
Prime Minister.
Well, let me reassure the victims.
I've had 20 years to quit smoking since I started, right? Now, I can blame my dad for being a dickhead as to why I started smoking, but I can't, and for my parents for taking me to a Royal British Legion filled with nicotine smoke for about 20 hours every week for 10 years. I can blame them for starting smoking, but I've had 20 years to stop. It's my fault I haven't stopped, not theirs. The Tories have had 14 years to deal with those rape crimes, and they didn't. They had 14 years to deal with those who helped cover them up. They didn't. Labour have not dealt with it because they, like the Tories, are helping cover it up. What you need to understand, the Tory party have members of their party who are guilty of helping cover up these crimes. So are the Labour Party. So it's in both their interests to deflect you away from what's really going on here, which is the fact that both of them fucked up.
And the House, that the scope of the inquiry will not be diluted and we won't shy away from cultural or religious issues.
Good. Because if someone raped someone because of their religion, we want to know about it. Simple.
Mr. Speaker, it was me that commissioned Baroness Casey in the first place, who gave me her recommendation in relation to a national inquiry, and we have, in the 4 months since then, finalised the panel and trying to get the leadership of this inquiry right, with survivors at the heart. Mr. Speaker, in that period, we have also reopened 1,200 historic closed cases. I have long argued, Mr. Speaker, that the criminal route where it can be pursued is the right route for perpetrators. We've introduced mandatory reporting of child sex abuse. I happen to...
That would be negligence in a public office, would be the crime you're talking about. To be honest, there's only 9 of you in that room who aren't guilty of it. Knowingly doing something or taking action that would lead to the harm of a member of the public. Knowingly. I emailed all 650 of you about me being raped under the Mental Health Act with a needle, about how the police had wrongfully charged me with a crime I was actually the victim of, how I had suffered my whole life with violent abuse from my own father, brother in high school, from the police who gave me a neck injury and a shoulder injury, which is never going to heal. And they've never been held accountable for. I've been given lifelong injuries, right?
For perpetrators. We've introduced mandatory reporting of child sex abuse.
But we're talking about negligence in a public office. The problem with the raping gang inquiry isn't the fact that people weren't charged, although that is the problem. It's the fact that people covered it up. That's the whole premise of this. There's members of the Labour Party and the Tory Party who helped cover up these crimes because they didn't want to be seen as racist.
I happen to think that is a vital safeguard. I've been campaigning for that for over a decade. I asked the last government to introduce it, and that fell on deaf ears. And that
Yeah, and I've asked you to stop treating men as unequal, but you haven't. You're still committing negligence in a public office.
Mandatory reporting of child sex abuse is something each and every one of them voted against earlier this year. And we've given victims and survivors the power to seek an independent review of their cases. But, Mr. Speaker, in relation to this inquiry, I want to go as fast as we can to get the justice that is deserved. I want to ensure survivors are involved in that, and we're balancing the two to get this right.
You see, like, this sort of inquiry going on here. Like, they're trying to deal with this rape gang inquiry, right? Imagine you're me, looking at them and their inability to deal with this rape inquiry scandal, which has been going on for nearly 13 years now, the cover-up, and they haven't dealt with it. Do you think this gives me confidence that they could deal with a national inquiry over the mistreatment of mentally disabled people under the Mental Health Act since its introduction? And before. You do realise in the 60s and 70s, the UK government was lobotomising people. They would cut off like part of their skull, remove part of the frontal cortex, the front lobe of the brain, so the patient couldn't have any perception of what was being done to them, essentially. They lost their perception, their ability to understand, right? And they call it medical treatment. You're talking about ex-soldiers, innocent British people who never committed a crime, maybe have been the victim of abuse, and so they did that to them. Ex-special forces who lost their minds through heroic acts, right? And that's what they did to them. And none of them have been compensated. Their families have never been compensated. Do you have any idea how many people they've done this to under the Mental Health Act since its introduction in the 80s? Not the lobotomies, they changed the names of things, but they still do electrotherapy. They still force dangerous medications on people that harm them and don't help them, like they did to the guy who cracked the Enigma code. What's he called? Alan Turing, right? So they did the same thing to Alan Turing, right? Because he was homosexual. They forced him to take medication that, what the fuck's going on here? They forced him to take medication that sterilised him. Okay? Literally, it sterilised him. And he was no longer able to have children. So he committed suicide. Like, honestly, it's a fucking joke. Like, he's a war hero. He was our war hero, and we still force dangerous medications on people that don't help them, don't cure them, just because they're homosexual or schizophrenic.
Me that commissioned Baroness Casey in the first place, who gave me her recommendation in relation to a national inquiry, and we have...
So yeah, I have no confidence in this government's ability to do the right thing and rightly compensate everyone they've ever mistreated under the Mental Health Act. They just won't do it. They will do everything they can to claim it never happened and nobody's getting compensated. That's what they do.
In the 4 months since then...
And they are war crimes, by the way, in my opinion. A war on the mentally disabled people that's been going on for thousands of years, where you all think it's okay to pick on people who are different to you because we're not a sheep like you, so it's okay to pick on us, apparently.
Finalise the panel and trying to get the leadership of this inquiry right with survivors at the heart. Mr. Speaker, in that period, we have also reopened 1,200 historic closed cases. I have long argued, Mr. Speaker, that the criminal route where it can be pursued is the right route for perpetrators. We've introduced mandatory reporting of child sex abuse. I happen to think that is a vital safeguard. I've been campaigning for that for over a decade. I asked the last government to introduce it, and that fell on deaf ears. And that...
Why wouldn't you have mandatory child sex abuse reports? Like, anytime someone is found guilty or suspected of, found guilty, I suppose. Anytime someone is found guilty of hurting or sexually abusing a child, like, everyone should be told. Why wouldn't you do that? We need to know who the dangers to children are. Obviously, we don't want to tolerate false accusations. Fine. But proven child predators, name and shame them. To everyone. I don't care. Put them on an island with no internet and let the military guard it with no children and provide them with rations. Because it's probably safer for them than a prison where they'll be murdered. Because people in prison have nothing better to do for the rest of their life. And some of them are already in there for murder. They might as well be the good guy because they murdered a pedo.
That mandatory reporting of child sex abuse is something each and every one of them voted against earlier this year. And we've given victims and survivors the power to seek an independent review of their cases. But, Mr. Speaker, in relation to this inquiry, I want to go as fast as we can to get the justice that is deserved. I want to ensure survivors are involved in that. And we're balancing the two to get this right, and I'll continue to do so.
Mr. Speaker, he's talking about mandatory reporting. I will remind him what Fiona asked. What is the point if the victims aren't going to be believed? What would be the point of mandatory reporting? All of this is happening now.
Like, yeah. I've reported to the country on Facebook and on the internet to the official channels, you know, for years now about what goes on under the Mental Health Act. And nothing is done. You just don't care. And it's the same with women who are raped. Like, powerful men don't care about women who have been raped. They don't. They only care that they're made to look bad because of it. That's what I believe. These powerful men don't care about rape victims. They don't give a fuck. They only care that they get made to look bad because of it.
Now, all he's saying is because 4 of those victims resigned from the survivors panel. If they hadn't done that, they would have continued with the watering down, which we all know that they were carrying out.
Yeah, that's what... So, look, it's called mitigation. Because Starmer's a lawyer, right? When you find out that the Labour Party has committed a crime, they're going to do everything they can to make it seem like it wasn't how it was, and so it wasn't a crime. Like, that's what he does. He's a lawyer. That's what they do. Like, someone gets raped and they're like, oh, but you were drunk, weren't you? So it wasn't really rape. You don't actually remember consenting. It's because you were too drunk to remember. Case dismissed. But they were raped, and the lawyers just got a rapist off with rape. That's literally the guy who's in charge of our country. A man who behaves like that. That's his job. That's what he's always done. Like a business who, sacks an employer, he'll defend the business and try and help them get away with unfair dismissal. When there's an employee who was sacked rightfully, he'll try and get the business prosecuted with unfair dismissal by trying leveraging terminology and perception. If there's two types of people in this world, you should never trust two types. It's a lawyer and an actor. Because you cannot trust what they say, because it's their profession to say what needs to be said to get what they need done. You can't trust them. You can't.
So yes, the victims are right to be worried. He also talked about looking for a chair. It has been 10 months since we first called for a national inquiry. 10 months. It is shocking that they still do not have a chair.
It's shocking that you still haven't installed a minister to reduce violence against men and boys, and we've had one to reduce violence against girls and women for about 5, 6, 7 years. And you don't seem to think that violence amongst men is a problem, because men are the ones committing the violence. There seems to be no attempt whatsoever by this government to try and reduce violence in our society amongst men and males. And so, we have millions of victims of violence from men who, because they're men, nobody cares about. Because they have the same gender as the one who attacked them, doesn't matter.
One of the final two candidates, Mr. Speaker, has pulled out, leaving a former police officer that the victims don't want. What they do want is a judge. They deserve a judge. So, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about the industrial scale rape of women and girls. Unlike most of the inquiries...
Just like I'm talking about the industrial scale human experimentation and torture that goes on under the Mental Health Act. If these lot can't deal with all due respect to the victims, and I'm sorry for your suffering, 700 women and girls who've been raped, right? If they can't deal with that, how the fuck are they going to deal with 10, 20, 50,000 people who have been tortured and experimented on by the NHS under the Mental Health Act, and they called it medical treatment? You see my problem, UK. You see my problem now. I have no faith these lot could get a lap dance in a brothel. I have no faith that these lot could get pissed in a brewery. These lot couldn't find marijuana on Snoop Dogg. I'm telling you, they're useless.
Going on. Why is it that this inquiry doesn't deserve a judge?
Prime Minister.
Can I answer that? It's a serious point, Mr. Speaker, because whether it should be Judge Les was looked at by Louise Casey, and she decided against that for a reason, and her reasons were twofold. I'll spell them out. The first was the speed with which we could do this, and it would have been... They asked the question, and the first was the speed with which we could do this. The second is really important, and that is that at the same time as the inquiry, I was absolutely determined that criminal investigations would go on at the same time. One of the problems that judge-led inquiries run into, I've seen and experienced this myself, is that they're often held back until the end of the criminal investigations. And I was determined that we'd be able to run the two together. And it's because of that, Mr. Speaker, that we've been able to reopen 1,200 historic cases at the same time. And Mr. Speaker, she asks, what's the point of mandatory reporting that she voted against? I don't think she understands how it works.
That's called condescending and belittling. I do it all the time, so I know.
This, Mr. Speaker, is mandatory reporting of those that have had allegations made to them.
Allegations? Yeah, so I don't agree with mandatory reporting of allegations. I agree with mandatory reporting of convictions. But, you can't just have every single government. Like, I told you earlier how I was wrongly charged with common assault because I was the victim of a violent crime, right? So I got made out to the child services, children's services, and the council and the local authorities as some sort of abuser of women, when I have spent my entire life protecting women. My sister from bullying in school, my mother from abuse at home. Like, I've spent my entire life trying to protect women, only for a woman to attack me and be made out by the authorities that I was an abuser of women. And even when I've got the evidence, the written confession of the woman who made me out to be an abuser, wrongfully, she didn't make me out to be an abuser, sorry. She didn't call the police. Like, it was a neighbourhood resolution thing, because Theresa May passed a law. So the police got called out because a neighbour called the police. Like, the partner at the time didn't ring the police. She didn't ring the police. You know, she didn't do that. So I got made out to be this domestic abuser to women. I have never in my life violently attacked someone, apart from self-defense, of course. I've never lost a fight because I don't start them, right? But I've never thrown the first punch. I've never thrown the first punch. I have accidentally punched someone in school. Finn Nichols, I think it was. I'm sorry, Finn. Busted his nose. Right, so Man United beat Newcastle like 3-1, I think. And we were outside the office. And he was giving it large. Like, 3-1, 3-1, 3-1. And, you know, he wouldn't have done that if I was that sort of guy. It's because I wasn't that sort of guy that he did it. And so I jokingly pretended to punch him. And he flinched forwards. So I busted his nose. And it was an accident. So I rushed into that is the only time I could be claimed. No, actually, that's not true. The fight with Francis Fair, because he'd insulted my mother, called her a lesbian. So I was like, oh, you want to fight? Like, because he didn't care about insulting my mum. He just wanted to look hard. So I challenged him to a fight. Now, Jimmy Sayers pushed me from behind into him, and my head hit his face and bust his lip open, and the fight had started. So then I started swinging. So I guess that's the only time I have thrown the first punch. But it's different. We were in the middle of a fight. It wasn't like I just walked up and hit someone or done it. I challenged him to a fight. We had gone outside the gates to fight. So it's not the same thing, is it? I've never violently attacked anyone in my life. Yet the local authorities made a false reports of me being a domestic abuser, essentially, for shouting at a woman who violently abused me. I literally got taken away from my newborn baby for it. For 4 months. It's unbelievable, the injustice in this country. Like, it's unbelievable.
And there's clear enough evidence they've then not passed that on.
Clear and evidence? You don't care about evidence. Otherwise, I would have been exonerated. The police would have paid me my £10 million. They would have paid my daughter the £250,000 compensation she's due. And they would have apologised for what they did to me in the public. Because what they did to me led to me becoming mentally unwell and led to my human experimentation and torture under the Mental Health Act, where I was raped with a needle every 2 weeks. Not to mention the lifelong injuries caused by excessive force during the mental health detainments that have left me with 3 lifelong injuries. A disfigurement to my wrist, a severely damaged neck, and my shoulder's no longer in its socket correctly. I'm in pain for the rest of my life because of what the police did. Because they didn't do their jobs properly. And these lot have all the evidence. The government and the police have the evidence I'm innocent. And they've done nothing. Nothing. It's like handing them video footage of someone trying to stab you, right? And then they say, well, how can we confirm that wasn't a toy knife? And so you show them the wound where they've stabbed you, and they're like, oh, well, we can't prove that that's the same wound from that image. Like, what the fuck are you lot on?
That is a fundamental problem, and there's clear enough evidence they've then not passed that on. That is a fundamental problem in the system.
It's a fundamental problem in the system that you ignore evidence. You ignore evidence.
That is why we've changed the law. They should hang their heads in shame having voted against that vital protection.
No, because what you're wanting to do is allow allegations to be reported. You can't allow a false allegation of someone being a child abuser. I'm sorry, you can't. Then we could just report you're a child abuser, Starmer. And there's nothing you could do about it. You'd have to prove yourself innocent. You'd be guilty until proven innocent. And that's not the way the system works. I agree with mandatory reporting of convicted people. Fine. But not just allegations. No. 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 Men have enough of that shit.
What he should hang his head in shame in is calling this a far-right bandwagon when we first raised this issue. The deputy leader, the future deputy leader, we all know who's going to win, called this a dog whistle. What we need to think about right now, Mr. Speaker, is the victims. It is the survivors. I spoke to one of them yesterday. Let's remember, these are victims who waived their anonymity, an incredibly difficult thing to do. And they believe that the safeguarding minister has lied to them and about them. Yep.
And I would believe them, because Keir Starmer used someone else's policies to win the election and then has never mentioned it. GB Energy, the National Wealth Fund, and 16 and 17-year-olds the right to vote. You're welcome, by the way, the Labour Party. You're welcome for using my policies to win an election and have the jobs you have, you know. You've never thanked me, but you're welcome. You ungrateful cunts.
One of the survivors has said, and I quote, "Jess Phillips needs to be removed because I don't think her conduct during this has been acceptable for the position that she holds." That is, those aren't my words. Those are the words of a survivor. It is a shame that Labour MPs are drowning that out. The member for Birmingham Yardley has clearly lost the confidence of the victims. Does she still have the confidence of the Prime Minister?
Can I just say, but Prime Minister, even if we are quoting somebody else, we shouldn't quote it because it's a direct allegation against a member of this House. So I'm sure that that's not what was intended, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm fairly sure that's exactly what was intended, but it's not an allegation from the MP. It's an allegation from the person who she's quoting from, and so it's allowed. I know you're the Speaker of the House, Lindsay, and you're trying to keep order, but the MP isn't making the allegation. It's a member of the public who's left this chair who's made that allegation in a quote, and she's quoted them, and she's entitled to do that. This is the problem. You can't keep dismissing evidence you don't like. You're supposed to be the government. Act like it. You're here to serve the people, not yourselves. So even when it's damaging to yourselves, you need to take it on the chin, because that's your job. You're here to serve us, the people. That's it. And if you don't do that, fuck off. Go find a different job. Go and be a banker or something.
I respect the views of all the survivors, and there are different views. I accept that. But the safeguarding minister, I think, has probably more experience than any other person in this House in dealing with violence against women.
I don't think the woman who is the minister to reduce violence against girls and women has more experience in dealing with violence against women than the victims of rape. Are you stupid, Keir? Are you fucking stupid? Did you seriously just say that?
Different views, I accept that. But the safeguarding minister, I think, has probably more experience than...
Oh, probably. That's the sort of word I would use to make sure it couldn't be held against me. Ha, probably.
Any other person in this House in dealing...
Than any other person in this House. Okay. So you're inferring she knows more than the quote, without directly saying it, because you're a lawyer and you're a sneaky twat.
With violence against women and girls. Alongside her will be Louise Casey. These two individuals, Mr. Speaker, have spent decades standing up for those who've been abused.
And yet the government has never spent one single day standing up for the abuse against against boys and men. We don't even have a minister to reduce violence against men and boys, but we do against women and girls. They never spent one day trying to stop violence amongst men. Just remember that. Just remember that. Next time you see violence on the streets, or you see a riot, or you see a gang violently assault someone and mug them, you remember Labour did nothing to stop that. Every politician in that room did nothing to try and discourage violence amongst males. Even though I wrote them all a letter about it, well, an email, all 650 of them, they've all ignored it. And they think it's not important. And well, I'm going to teach them a very painful lesson that men are important. And we do matter.
And sexually exploited. And I absolutely think they're the right people to take this forward.
Mr. Speaker, she doesn't have more experience than the survivors.
Correct.
The fact is, just a few weeks ago, he was standing there telling us he had full confidence in the best friend of a convicted paedophile. So it is
Mandelson.
no surprise that people have no confidence in what he is saying. The victim...
Because he's a shifty, sneaky lawyer who stole someone else's policies to win the election, never thanked them or credited them for it, and has fucked them up, and is blaming everyone else for it. Yeah. He's a twat.
have said that she should be sacked. We on this side of the House believe that she should be sacked because this is about Labour failure. Labour never wanted this inquiry. We demanded it. It has been Labour-run councils, Trafford, Bradford, Blackpool, that try to suppress the truth. It is Labour ministers attacking the victims. We're standing up for them. And how is it, Mr. Speaker, how is it that whether it is rape or Chinese espionage, when he's in a position to do something about it, it's always someone else's fault?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my priorities are listening to and standing up for the survivors. That's why we're doing the work on the inquiry. That's why we've reopened the criminal cases, why we brought in mandatory reporting.
Never stood up for me. I'm a survivor of what you're speaking about. Just because I'm a man, though. Oh, it doesn't matter. It only matters if you're a rape victim or if you're a female, doesn't it?
But I would gently remind them...
Wanker. Fucking wanker. Get the fuck out of office and we get a real man in. Get a person in charge who actually isn't a pussy, who, you know, isn't afraid to have dirt on their clothes. This is the problem. We always have these leaders who are very happy to shovel shit and dirt on everyone else, but as soon as they get a little tiny bit on them, they start panicking. Oh no, I've got some dirt on me. Oh no. That's you, Starmer. You're happy to dish dirt on everyone else, but you're not willing to have it on you.
They had 14 years in office. They barely mentioned...
He's right as well. They had 14 years in office. The last crime of this scandal was committed in 2013. They were out of office, 2024? So they had 11 years to deal with this. And they didn't. 11 years. They're both as guilty as each other here.
...this issue. And where there were inquiries, they failed to act on them. We have done more in the time we've been in office than they did in 14 long years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mental ill health affects 1 in 4 of us. It costs this country up to £300 billion a year.
It's going to cost you a hell of a lot more money if you don't pay me my compensation for torturing me under the Mental Health Act. I don't think you understand, right? I'm serious. If this country doesn't pay me the compensation I'm due for my mistreatment by the police and the mental health services, right? If I'm not paid the compensation I'm due, I will spend the rest of my life to make sure that every victim under the Mental Health Act gets paid. Not just me. So it's either pay me the 10 million that you owe me and a $250,000 to my daughter and a public live apology by the police for their failures, right? It's either that or I make this country pay everyone. And I don't want to have to do that, but it would be the right thing to do. It's going to take a lot of effort, you see. I would rather devote my life to being happy and living a nice life and trying to be peaceful and enjoying the freedom I've earned. But if I have to use the rest of my life to try and defend those that nobody else is defending, I will do it. I will fucking do it. Stop mistreating mentally ill people.
So will the Prime Minister join me in thanking the staff at McGull Health Park who do a brilliant job in looking after those suffering from mental ill health?
Do they do a good job though? What was their name?
Brilliant job in looking after the staff a year. So will the Prime Minister join me in thanking the staff at McGull Health Park who do a brilliant job in looking after those suffering from mental ill health? And will he wish them well?
Let's see if he's telling the truth. McGull Health Park. Let's have a look. 3 Google reviews. 1 star. Can you tell your staff who get off the train and walk through the housing estate to be more respectful? No music blaring on their phone, shouting, not talking to each other even though they're standing next to each other. Like this every weekend. Okay, that's really nothing. I can't say that's bad. Well, they've got good ratings. I'll give them that. Oh, it's a low secure unit. Alright, that explains it. That'll be why. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at this place. See what it's like. Yeah, so it's not a highly secure facility. They're right next to a Boots and loads of shops. Judging by the size of it, it's next to a doctor's, another doctor's, so it's treated as a normal mental health place. So it's an outpatient facility. It's not an inpatient facility. Outpatients, right, okay.
With their plans to set up a world-leading research and innovation centre which will make an enormous contribution towards this government's stated aim of giving mental and physical health care equal priority.
What a load of shit. What a load of shit.
Prime Minister.
Well, of course I join in thanking the staff at McGull Health Park. Mr. Speaker, we are investing £15.6 billion to bring down mental health waiting lists, vital in continuing to drive down inactivity and helping people to get the...
But you're not trying to stop people being tortured and human experimentation done under the Mental Health Act by raping patients with medications that don't help them, don't cure them, and have no medical benefit to them whatsoever. You're just doing it to see if it helps. Let's break someone's leg to see if it fixes the arm break. Let's stop someone's heart and see if it fixes the spine. Bellends.
The care that they need. In the upcoming multi-year capital budgets, we will enable NHS Trust to accelerate decisions on local priorities, and that could include developments like the Mental Health Digital Research Centre that he champions.
You know, if you wanted to understand how to treat mental health patients better, instead of asking the doctors who think they know better in every case and scenario, even though most of the time they don't, sometimes they do. Sometimes the doctors are very good. Very good. But quite a lot of the time, the doctors don't have a clue. So they'll just try this medication or try that medication and see what helps. We need better treatment methods. And if you cared about the treatment of mental health patients, you would bring ex-mental health patients on board to advise you. But no, you're going to take the word of the people who mistreated mental health patients and allowed non-beneficial treatments of mental health patients, like lobotomies, to decide the treatment options.
The Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you.
It's like having a female rights movement inquiry but you don't bring a female on board because all the men think they know female rights well enough because they're men. Like, you know, it's the same shit. Doctors always think they know better than patients. And sometimes they do, sure. But when it comes to mental health, right, they don't always know better. There are some evil mental health doctors out there who just abuse patients. They don't do a good job. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've experienced it.
Mr. Speaker, can I agree with the Prime Minister about the words he said about Claire Frossell? About Claire Frossell. And agree with him that it's right that we change the law, and I hope it's named after her sons, Jack and Paul.
I'm sorry, but I can't deal with Ed Davies. I can't be asked. Right? This is Prime Minister's question time, not man who's not taking his job seriously time. The Green Party recently just tried to announce they were going to try and make all drugs legal, just so that people would pay attention to them. These people aren't serious parties. They're not serious. They don't have serious policies. It's a niche thing for them. It's a fringe thing. They know they're never going to get power, so they do just enough to keep getting paid and their job to remain relevant. So they are a relevant irrelevancy, essentially. So I can't be asked with them. So thanks very much for watching. That's the Pope's Politics. Obviously, I am sorry to seem insensitive over the rape victims, but I myself am a rape victim, so I'm not really insensitive, and I'm not speaking about needles here. So at the end of the day, nobody cares about me being a rape victim because I'm a man. There's no voice for men in Parliament. We have no voice there against rape, against violence, against domestic abuse, against systematic mistreatment by the police and government agencies. Like, you'll see men in riots getting hit in the face with bulletproof shields or ballistic shields, but they don't do that to women. Like, you'll literally see men coming out of riots bloodied and battered just because of where they were stood, but not women. Because they're happy to use excessive, unreasonable force on men, but not women. Because they know they would be punished and scolded for doing it to women. But because nobody stands up for men, they get away with it. Men literally have no voice in government, in this world. Just because these guys are men and male doesn't mean they are a voice for men. I don't class these people as men to me. A man stands up for what's right, no matter the consequences. No matter the consequences. And not one of them do that. Not one of them. They do what's right for them. Not what's right for them. And that's the difference between a good person and a not good person. Thanks very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.